Welcome back to G-Fun Facts Online. Today we are going to dismantle a stereotype that has persisted for over a century. It is the image of the Neanderthal as a creature of grim necessity. When we close our eyes and picture our ancient cousins, we usually see them huddled in cold caves, scraping hides, sharpening spears, and focusing entirely on the brutal reality of survival. We imagine a species locked in the present moment, capable of killing a mammoth, but incapable of appreciating a sunset. We assume that for the Neanderthal, if an object did not feed them, clothe them, or protect them, it was useless. But the caves are finally speaking, and they are telling a very different story. In the flickering lamplight of recent archaeological excavations, a new portrait is emerging. It is not a portrait of brute survivalists, but of curious observers. We are discovering that Neanderthals were sentient beings who traveled vast distances, not just for food, but for beauty. We have found their paintings, we have found their jewelry. And now, thanks to groundbreaking discoveries in Spain and across Europe, we have found their collections. It appears that Neanderthals were humanity's first curators. Long before the first museum was built, before Homo sapiens began hoarding gold or gemstones, Neanderthals were walking the riverbeds and limestone ridges of Europe, bending down to pick up ancient marine fossils that had no practical use, simply because they found them intriguing. This episode is the story of those fossils, the museums found in their caves, and what they reveal about the awakening of the human mind. To understand the magnitude of this discovery, we have to travel to the Cornejo Valley in northern Spain. There, tucked into the landscape, is the Prado Vargas Cave. It is a vast limestone cathedral of a site. For years, archaeologists led by Marta Navazo Ruiz of the University of Burgos have been excavating a specific layer known as Level 4. This layer of sediment is dated to between 39,800 and 54,600 years ago. This is a critical time window. It represents a world firmly in the grip of the Neanderthals. Modern humans had not yet arrived in this part of the Iberian Peninsula. As the researchers sifted through the dirt of Level 4, they found the standard debris of Paleolithic life. There were flint knives, the charred bones of red deer and wild goats, and the ash of ancient hearths. This is what you expect to find. These are the remnants of survival. But scattered among these utilitarian objects were things that simply did not fit. They found 15 marine fossils. Now, these were not fresh shells left over from a seafood dinner. These were the ancient, stonified remains of creatures that had lived in the Cretaceous seas millions of years earlier. The collection was diverse, and it was specific. It included Tylostoma, which are large, spiral-shaped predatory sea snails. It included Phallodomia and Granicardium, bivalves with distinct rib textures. And perhaps most strikingly, it included Tetragramma, a fossilized sea urchin, its spiny symmetry perfectly preserved in stone. In archaeology, context is everything. The immediate question was whether these fossils could have washed into the cave naturally. Maybe they just fell out of the walls? The researchers consulted the geological maps to find the answer. The walls of Prado Vargas are made of Coniacian limestone. However, the fossils found in the cave came from Santonian and Campanian formations. This geological discrepancy was the smoking gun. It meant that these fossils did not belong in that cave. To bring them there, a Neanderthal had to walk to a specific outcrop, recognize the fossil, pry it loose or pick it up, and carry it back to camp. The nearest source for some of these fossils was over 30 kilometers or 18 miles away. Think about the energy expenditure required for that. In the Ice Age, calories were currency. You did not waste energy carrying heavy, useless rocks for 18 miles unless those rocks had value to you. Furthermore, microscopic analysis revealed a startling lack of wear on these items. With one single exception of a fossil used as a hammerstone, none of the items showed signs of being used as tools. They were not scrapers. They were not arrowheads. They were pristine. They had been collected, transported, and kept intact. This was a collection in the truest sense of the word. So who were these first curators? The presence of a single milk tooth found in the same layer at Prado Vargas offers a poignant possibility. Collecting is a deeply human trait, but psychologists note that it is specifically a childhood trait. The urge to gather useless objects, like smooth pebbles, shiny beetle wings, or strange shells, often emerges in human children between the ages of 3 and 6. It is a form of play, a way of categorizing the world, and a sign of cognitive development. The researchers at Prado Vargas have suggested that these 15 fossils might represent the treasure box of a Neanderthal child. We can easily imagine a young Neanderthal accompanying their parents on a foraging trip miles from home. While the adult scanned the horizon for game or flint, the child looked down, captivated by the spiral of a Tylostoma snail turned to stone. They might have gestured to it and said, "Stone snail." Rather than discarding it as useless heavy weight, the adults allowed the child to bring it home. Or perhaps it was the adults themselves who were captivated, seeing in the fossilized sea urchin a reflection of the stars, or a pleasing geometry that satisfied an aesthetic itch. If Protovargus were the only site with such findings, we might dismiss it as an anomaly, perhaps just a single eccentric clan of Neanderthals. But once archaeologists started looking for manuports, which is the technical term for objects carried by hand by hominids, they found them everywhere. In the Grotta di Fumane in Italy, roughly 47,000 years ago, a Neanderthal picked up a fossilized shell of Aspa marginata. This was no casual pickup. This shell had been transported over 100 kilometers, but the owner did more than just carry it. They modified it. Traces of pure hematite, a red pigment, were found smeared on the shell. It was not used as a tool, it was an object of display. Whether worn as a pendant or kept as a talisman, the red shell of Fumane proves that Neanderthals were capable of symbolic thought, attributing meaning and color to objects that had no survival function. In France, the site of Combe Grenal yielded even older secrets. In layers dating back to the Acheulean-Mousterian transition, excavators found brachiopod fossils. Like the Spanish discoveries, these were beautiful, symmetrical objects that had been singled out from the chaos of the natural world and brought into the domestic sphere. Skeptics might argue that we are projecting our own values onto these objects. Maybe they were just oddly shaped raw materials intended for tools. The site of Grotta dei Masserini in Italy provides the perfect counter-argument to that skepticism. Here Neanderthals also collected shells, specifically the smooth clam Callistaceone, but they used these shells as scrapers. We know this because they retouched the edges, sharpening them like flint knives. This distinction is vital. It proves that Neanderthals knew that Callista shells were tools. But they treated the Tylostoma fossils of Protovargus and the Aspa of Fumane differently. They had a clear cognitive category for utilitarian objects and a separate, perhaps more mysterious category for aesthetic objects. They knew the difference between a hammer and a keepsake. Why does this matter? Why should we care about a few rocks in a cave? It matters because collecting is a hallmark of abstract thinking. To collect a fossil requires a complex chain of mental events. First, there is recognition. You must see an object and distinguish it from the background noise of gravel and dirt. Second, there is appreciation. You must assign value to the object based on its shape, texture, or color, rather than its function. Third, there is future planning. You must decide to carry the object, which costs energy, for a future reward, such as enjoyment or social bonding, rather than immediate gratification. For decades, we believed Neanderthals lacked this capacity for symbolism. We thought they were literalists, unable to think beyond the meat on the bone or the fire in the hearth. The collections at Protovargus and Fumane shatter this prejudice. They suggest that the Neanderthal mind was capable of aesthetic remove, the ability to step back and appreciate the form of nature for its own sake. These collections may represent the very seedlings of artistic tradition. Before you can sculpt a perfect sphere, you must first appreciate the spherical shape of a sea urchin fossil. Before you can paint a bison, you must first notice the animal shapes in the rocks and clouds. By collecting these ready-made art objects from nature, Neanderthals were exhibiting the sensibilities that would eventually lead to the cave paintings of Lascaux and Altamira. When we look at the Tylostoma snail from Protovargus, we are looking at a bridge across time. It is a bridge that connects us to a vanished people, not through their death or their violence, but through their wonder. We are a species of collectors. We fill our shelves with vinyl records, our pockets with sea glass, and our museums with bones. We do this to capture pieces of the world, to organize the chaos of existence, and to leave a mark of our identity. It turns out, we did not invent this. 46,000 years ago, in a flickering cave in Spain, a Neanderthal held a stone snail in a calloused hand and felt the same spark of intrigue that drives a modern child to pick up a seashell. They were not just surviving the Ice Age, they were admiring it. They were the first curators, and in their silent collections we finally see the reflection of our own humanity. That brings us to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the prehistoric mind, make sure to follow G Fun Facts Online for more explorations into the hidden history of our world.